Welcome into STB Sports Take, some of the best sports podcast. I'm your host, Sean Bingham. We are joined today by Dave Glauser and Aleni Afuvai, good friends of mine, college football experts. Guys, thanks for being here.
Thanks. Excited to be on the best, simply the best sports podcast.
That is
Longtime
right.
listener, longtime fan, first time contributor.
Is this your first time being on?
It's the first time.
Wow, dude, welcome.
Been afraid to have me on because of some of my opinions, I guess.
That's true. We'll see how it goes today. But no, these guys are very, very well versed in college sports, college football in particular, I would say. And with this big settlement that just happened, and now colleges can pay athletes directly, they don't have to go through NIL. I thought it'd be good to have you guys on. So I'm actually going to turn the time immediately over to you. And if one of you could just explain what exactly just happened, what does this mean? What is this settlement? So Dave, why don't you start?
Yeah, so this actually combined three lawsuits, but the main one, they call it the House settlement. It was a former swimmer from ASU, and this lawsuit was brought in 2020, and so just now settled. These lawsuits take forever. Combined several lawsuits and sort of limited the ongoing class action lawsuit risks for the NCAA. They have to back pay athletes. I believe it goes back to 2016, if I remember. Yeah, 2016. There's a lot of money out for them, but it's going to be divided among many athletes. But moving forward is kind of the focus. Moving forward, each school will be able to contribute revenue sharing with their athletes up to $20.5 million spread across all the athletes. And so then with that, NIL is supposed to become a smaller piece. NIL now, any contract that's over $600 has to go through a clearinghouse that's going to be managed by Deloitte, one of the big three accounting firms. And they are going to determine if it actually is according to the fair market value of the athlete's name, image, and likeness, which that's a tough job. Good luck to them on doing that.
Yeah.
What's interesting?
Isn't Deloitte the ones that did the NBA draft, like auditing?
I don't know. Are
No,
they?
if it is, so they're crooked. So we know it's going to be.
Yeah, that's how they got this
Who
job.
watches the NBA anymore? It's been a while.
I mean, and this has been a great playoffs.
Yeah, this playoffs.
It has.
There's going to be a lot of ambiguity. It's going to be tough to know. I mean, is that going to be determined by the market size of where the school is, by how popular the athlete is? I'm sure all those will come into play here, but you can make an argument for a pretty wide range on what the fair market value is of something, right? I'm sure they'll come up with their formulas and be able to determine that. But the idea is to shift it away from collectives. So you don't have all these fans and billionaires paying a bunch of money in so that they can go say to a player, hey, come here and we'll pay you, but rather allowing the athletes to actually capitalize and help businesses with their name, image, and likeness and promoting the business.
So how did they determine 2016? Like, why did it go? Any idea why it went just to 2016?
I don't know why it went to 2016. I'm sure they just had to draw the line somewhere, and
Maybe
that's
it's
what
just
they
last
chose.
10 years. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that could make sense.
Okay, so I didn't realize that NIL was going to be so regulated. Now, I think that's a good thing, honestly. I feel like it's been needed for a while. I am very much on the side of the athletes should be getting paid. I mean, these schools have been making hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars being poured into the NCAA, all on the backs of athletes that have been getting nothing, and they get, penalized if they get a free lunch, So I'm all for athletes getting paid. What are the downsides of this, though? So for those that don't know, I don't even know if I mentioned this. I apologize. Dave is an attorney. He's got a lot of different insight on this that maybe I wouldn't have. So what are the downsides of paying athletes in this way?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of ambiguity around it, first and foremost. But some of the downsides I would say is if I'm an athletic director, why don't you just cut every non-revenue program that you have? Are you going to share revenue with your men's tennis team when you want to win at football and maybe a little bit basketball? But I mean, what are we doing? Why are we subsidizing these other sports? Why, even if you're not paying them revenue share, why are you paying their scholarship or flying the golf team all around the country when you want every single dollar that you have going to football? Give me the best football facilities and give me, pay those players. So I understand a lot of the schools are going to be able to hit that 20.5 million mark. University of Utah's athletic director came out and said that they're going to be able to hit that. They're going to have the full allocation. If they can have that, am I to believe that Georgia and Ohio State are okay with the same salary cap that the University of Utah has? I don't believe that for a second, right?
No,
That's not going to happen.
No.
Another one of the questions is we have Title IX says that there has to be equal opportunity for female and male athletes. unclear if this means you have to pay them the same. The belief is that the current administration is going to be okay with it not being the payment, that half of that 20.5 has to go to female athletes, but that could change. There could be a lawsuit there. Um, each player and each school is signing something, agreeing not to sue over this whole thing. That doesn't mean it's actually going to stop them from suing, but they are agreeing not to sue. And
Sue
it,
who?
it's called the College Sports Commission,
Okay.
the CSC, right? But the penalties for violating any of this. So if Deloitte comes in and they're like, "Oh, you threw $7 million at this basketball player, who's very clearly not worth that in his name, image, and likeness," the penalties they can expel the team from playing in this college sports, right? So my question is, when Alabama cheats, because they always have allegedly,
Yeah.
am I to believe that the SEC is going to be like, yeah, that's okay. Go ahead and kick them out for a few years. We're all right with that. I mean,
Well, for real, and like I'm gonna look up real quick, um, who did the because I think it was Deloitte that did the NC or the NBA draft. Let's see what firm oversaw the NBA.
and I should be clear. I do think this is a step in the right
Oh no,
direction.
it was
The
Ernst and Young.
NCAA has been
Ernst and Young
EY.
oversaw the Ernst and Young.
Yeah, I mean, we've been dealing with the NCAA that has been there. You never know how they're going to decide. They don't appear to have any criteria other than allegedly favoring some of the bigger schools in their decisions of granting eligibility. They take forever. These players are left in limbo and off seasons, getting ready for a college football season. They don't even know. They're saying Deloitte is going to be much quicker with decisions and that they're going to introduce more transparency. So they're going to explain their decisions, which is great. I don't even know if I'm cautiously optimistic about this. I'm whatever's like 5 levels below that. I just think this whole thing is going to get blown up pretty fast by lawsuits. They said that they anticipate lawsuits, but they also said every single school that's participating in this is signing something saying that they will be bound by the punishments and that they agree to abide by these rules. I believe every school signed that. I think once it actually plays out, like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not going to work. And then one of the other questions I wanted to flag is how's this going to work for the basketball only schools, right? Like, so you're telling me that Marquette has a $20.5 million budget that they don't have to share with the football team. Now, I don't know if they'll have all of that, but am I to believe that Kentucky or Florida is going to miss out on basketball recruits to Gonzaga and be like, we just don't have the resources that Gonzaga has, that Villanova has. I mean, it's just not going to happen. They're going to do what they've always done, and they're going to throw the most money at it to get the most players, the players that they want. And as soon as they try to enforce it against the SEC, my prediction is try and enforce this against the SEC school, and watch how fast the SEC and the Big Ten break off, make their own league with their own salary cap.
Yeah.
And they're not going to want schools like Big 12 schools to have the same salary cap. Why would they?
No. Well, so a couple things there. That's really good info. A few things you said there. One, you mentioned like the tennis team or the cross country teams. Like, why would they get the same amount? And can women get the same amount? And that's like an argument for another day. But I mean, if you just look at the economics of things, like the money all comes from football, which is men's, and then maybe men's basketball in a lot of cases is also profitable. I don't think any school has anything else that is profitable outside of those two. Maybe Iowa with Caitlin Clark, her senior year was profitable for women's basketball. But outside
Definitely.
of that, I don't think there's a single gymnastics team or golf team or tennis team or swimming team that is profitable. Not that I'm aware of. I haven't researched it. I don't know if you guys have. But so do we know, like, is there something in place that says they have to be getting we don't know that? Is that what you were saying?
They have to be getting the same amount of money.
Yeah.
No, it's unclear, and the belief is that at least the Trump administration is not going to go after that or try and enforce that.
Okay. So the next one I
But
had,
so we
Al,
we get a new president and this changes, I mean, that's a big
yeah.
deal. That's a big change.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that's really big, and you were touched on this, and I know, Alan, you're really big on, you're always sending us different scenarios where their conferences could realign and how we could make it, truly power conferences, get rid of like some of the Rutgers type schools from these power conferences and put the correct schools in. How likely is it with what Dave was saying where the SEC and the Big Ten break off? Because we always believe wherever the line is, wherever the rule is, we know that people are going to push past it. There's going to be cheating. So at what point does that happen? And at what point does do these big conferences just say, you know what, like, we don't need to be with the Big 12 and the ACC. Let's just go do our own thing. We're not in the NCAA. Like, how likely is that? And what would that do to change college sports in your mind?
Well, I think it is likely, and I think it is coming. But we all know that college football moves at a pretty glacial pace. In fact, this House settlement that just happened, it just goes to show that the NCAA, college sports in general, doesn't make any moves. And it seems like unless they're getting sued, go back to the O'Bannon case a few years back, go back even farther when the BCS was a thing, and mid-major schools like Utah were suing for access, and that's what caused the eventual college football playoff system that we have now. So
Yeah.
is it going to happen? It's absolutely going to happen. But I mean, we're probably looking at 5 or 10 years. All the lawsuits and that are coming up that Dave just talked about, that's probably going to be the catalyst for it. To where Greg Sankey, if he's still the commissioner, just throws his hands up and says, "No more. We're not doing this." It feels like that the number they're not going to drop when the Big Ten and the SEC separate, which I believe they will. It feels like they're not going to drop any of their lower teams. They're just not, you know. And so to me, I think that number when they break off is going to be 50, and they're going to pull out some ACC schools. They're going to pull out some Big 12 schools.
What's in it for them to keep Rutgers? Like, I don't
They
get
get
it.
a win once a year.
Yeah,
It's not. Well, see, that's
but you're sharing revenue with them. Like, why
Yeah, I
would you
mean,
want to?
they're,
there's a few things that go into this, right? Like part of it is that the real puppet masters pulling the strings here are, at least in the last round of realignment, it's the TV networks, right? It's
Yeah,
Fox and the Big Ten, it's
yeah,
ESPN and the SEC. So I mean, there's an argument that okay, Rutgers gives you the New York market, which is the biggest television market in the United States, or I believe it's the second biggest to LA. I don't think anybody buys that, right? Like, how
yeah.
many people do you know from New York that truly care about Rutgers?
Nobody.
But at
I
least
actually
it
didn't know that
like
Rutgers was in New York.
really, I think it's in New
probably
Jersey,
the
but
best thing
Okay,
regardless,
like
it's in that area.
okay.
But I do know that like when these TV networks are looking at it, they're able to count something as a local network, or they're able to have it as the local programming. There's some kind of calculation there where they're like, willing to take USC because it'll give them LA, even though everybody's like, yeah, okay. I mean, UCLA is a bigger name than Rutgers, but San Diego will get us into Southern California, San Diego State, and you're like, yeah,
Yeah,
okay, but
and
but it does get them a local presence there.
and make
yeah.
no mistake, it's going to be the TV networks that choose which ACC schools, which Big 12 schools, maybe a G5 school that join this new super conference. And yeah, give it. It's probably not going to happen in 5 years. It might happen in about a decade, though.
I saw a tweet, and I sent this to you guys a few days ago, or maybe it was a week or two ago. But basically, there was a tweet out there, and I searched through this account to see if it was like an obvious spoof account, and it definitely was not. But it also wasn't necessarily a reputable source. But there was already the rumors out there. The SEC commissioner is saying like this will happen, but I don't know if there's any truth to that or not. But it feels like it's inevitable to me that the Big Ten and the SEC break away.
Well, Kyle Whittingham says
Is,
this is going to happen, so it's probably going to happen.
did he
Well, I
say that?
think he said it a bunch. Yeah, he's been saying it for years. I think if you read between the lines of what the other news that just came out in college football a week ago was that they're removing the auto seeding from the college football playoff with 12 teams, right? Which is
Which
great.
I like that. You guys not like that? I like it.
No, I think it's good. I think it makes sense. Like Oregon had such a tough draw last year, and they were
Yeah,
they were the number one team in the country, right? They won the Big
yeah.
Ten, and it just didn't seem fair to give Arizona State and I believe it was Boise State those top seeds. Anyway, when they made that change, it's going to hurt the ACC and the Big 12. They're not going to get a top seed most years, and so both of their commissioners came out and released statements on this because they agreed to that. And in their statement, they both said to the effect this isn't what's best for the Big 12, but it's what's best for college football. We need to focus on what's best for college football. They clearly had co-branded those talking points when they said that. Well, the
Mhm.
SEC commissioner came out and just blasted them. In fact, you should pull up the quote and read it. And he's like, you can coordinate the press conference all you want or your talking points.
The
I don't need to
SEC
be lectured.
commissioner.
Yeah, his name's Greg Sankey.
Yeah, I know.
Um, I mean, we'll let you read the quote, but he said, I don't need to be lectured about what's best for college football. It's obvious to me that what was happening is the Big 12 and the ACC are preparing to make an argument and throw a fit about, hey, what's best for college football? You can't break off and go play in your own league. That's not what's best for college football. We all need to make sacrifices for the greater good. And that's they're getting ahead of that talking point because they know it's coming and they're trying to stop it. And the SEC commissioner is just not having it. He's I don't need to be lectured about what's best for college football. I want to hear some ideas, is kind of what he said.
Hey, I want to
Yeah,
ask
I've
you
got
a
it. I'll just,
question. Can I ask a question, Sean?
yeah, go for it.
With this 20.5 million salary cap, we got to assume that most of that money is going to go to football because that's the major revenue sports. I'm excited to see what happens
Oops,
with
sorry.
schools like Kentucky or Kansas that are driven by basketball. Like, is most of that 20.5 million going to go to the basketball team now to stay competitive at the levels they want to stay competitive at? And if they do so, let's say they send 15 million or 10 million to the basketball team and only 10 million to their football team. Those football teams aren't going to be able to compete when everyone else has got a $20.5 million budget or however it's allocated, but you can guess 80 to 90% to the football team. Like, what happens
Some of those
on the
schools,
football field as opposed to, because they're going to send more money to basketball. That's just going to happen. So I'm excited to
I
see
mean,
that.
same thing that's happened for the majority of the last 30 years, right? Like Kansas has just been mopped up in football by everyone that plays them. They've been tough the last couple of years, but
The
typically
last
that
couple
doesn't
of years, yeah,
happen.
they've picked it up. So I look at this and to me, I'm I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a capitalist for the most part, in most senses. So to me, it's like if you're the one generating the revenue, like you should get the revenue. Like the sharing of like, oh, like because you're in our conference or because you go to this school or because whatever you play a sport that nobody cares about, like sorry you're not good at football, sorry you're not good at basketball. I don't know. Am I
You want
am
me?
I am
I
I a
can I
total
can push
jerk for
back
thinking
on
that
that.
way?
Yeah, no, you're not a jerk. You're totally right. There's a couple ways to model this, right? That's what the Premier League does, and it's been shaken up recently this last season. But typically, who's going to win a lot of these European soccer leagues. They have so much more money, right? Yeah, you look at the league in Spain, and it's always going to be FC Barcelona or Real Madrid. They win it every year. If that's what you want, great. But the problem is, you look at the NBA. Parity is good for a league as a whole. If you have 36 teams, you want the fans of all those teams to be really invested. You want competitive games. You want questions and upsets and who's going to win. So if you want to eliminate all that and just have Alabama play Ohio State every year or something like that, just do a 16 playoff with the six teams that we already know are the Goliaths out here. That's great, but you're going to lose fans. What makes college football great is the regionality, the regional rivalries, the traditions, the histories. You look at Washington State got left out in the cold from this last round of realignment. I think one of the coolest things about college game day is that every college game day for like the last however many 20 years, there's a Washington State flag at every single one. And those fans have coordinated the effort to let's make sure there's always a flag there. That's awesome. Washington State's not this great program with a million fans, but like I like having them there. I'm not a Washington State fan, but that's cool. It's fun.
It's
So
the
if you
cougar
want
in
to,
you. It's the cougar in you that likes that.
the only Cougars I like, besides your mom's friends, Washington State, but anyway,
They're pretty
so
great.
if you want to eliminate all that, right? There's
Telling
so
you
much.
right.
There's the bell ringing at Texas Tech that's given us some great memes. There's all the different stadiums you travel to and the campuses you see. If you want to get rid of that and you want to say, let's just have the 10 best or 20 best play each other, sure. But college football as a whole is going to lose fans. It's
Well,
going to lose eyeballs. It's going to lose excitement. We like to see, Indiana make their way to the playoff and then, you
But
know,
we
but why would it be getting rid of that? It's not getting rid of
well
that,
we
is
saw
it? It's just adjusting it a little bit.
we saw a lot of
It's
that.
just
I'm,
it's
We saw a lot of that
Go
with
ahead,
Clemson
Alan.
and Alabama when it seemed like for almost a decade straight, it was just those two meeting in the national championship. By the third time, viewership dropped off a cliff. No, everyone was sick of seeing the same two teams in the same spot. I think, to Dave's point, I think regionality is going to come back when that Super League forms and breaks off. They'll get those
Mhm.
50 teams and then they'll just break them back up into regional conferences. That's been my biggest gripe with this whole thing. I don't care that players are getting played. You hear a sentiment going through the fan base. Oh, these players are getting played, are getting paid. I'm not gonna like college football as much. I'm not gonna watch as much, and it's just not true. Ratings are up, and if you've got a problem with the kids getting paid, that's a you problem. It's not an on the field problem. The product on the field.
No, the kids should
It's
absolutely get paid. I mean, to have commissioners and ADs and coaches and administrations and everyone else getting rich, but not the people that are actually generating the
yeah,
money, that's just
yeah.
craziness to me. So I'm all for that. But I will say this: you guys mentioned parity and ratings and stuff. I'd have to look up the ratings for college football, but I will say the NBA, for instance, has a lot more parity now than it has in the past, and the ratings are in the toilet. The ratings actually show that people don't want parity. We want Michael Jordan winning 6 in a row. We want Tom Brady winning seven Super Bowls. We want Roger Federer dominating over and over and over. That's what ratings really show. It doesn't show that we want Indiana versus OKC. Like, it was the lowest rated NBA finals in history so far. It's literally since they started doing the ratings, this is the lowest rated it's ever been. And it's because it's two markets that nobody cares about.
There's one.
The
Now,
ratings have been dropping, right?
The difference right now is that there's
well, but they were on the rise a little bit. But yeah, the NBA ratings have been dropping, but they've also were coming back up until these finals. This is the lowest rated finals.
Wasn't one of the highest rated finals of all time the Utah Jazz against the Chicago Bulls? I mean, Chicago's a big city, but Utah's not, and that's a small market team. That's parity. That's a team that probably,
but it hasn't been back. Michael Jordan. The highest rated ever was Michael Jordan going for number 6 when everybody knew that was the last dance. It was very public that was the final time the Bulls were going to be together. So as much as in Utah we want to believe that it had to do with John Stockton,
they were tuning in for John Stockton and Brian Russell.
I think it was.
No, I think what you're saying is true though, right? Everybody does want to see those big markets. But I think if you force all these teams to go play in their sandbox, you don't even give them a seat at the table. I think that ratings as a whole will drop. I mean, look, we're all big college football fans because we have our allegiances to our local schools. Mm-hmm. If Utah's playing in a separate league, we don't even have a chance, or in your case, Sean, BYU doesn't even have a shot to go to the playoff. Like not a like reasonable one, but like no matter, you could go undefeated and you're going to go to your own little lesser championship. I just don't think we're going to care as much about what's happening with Ohio State and Georgia. Maybe we still will, but at what point does this just become like a minor league? No one cares about minor league baseball. No one cares about the G League. So what's the difference? Why do we care about college and we don't care about minor leagues?
That's a very good point. But I will say, when I think of like intramural sports, right, or I think about the European soccer leagues or soccer leagues all around the world, they do have relegation. You have to earn your way up. So what if it was something like that where you could I don't know if the Big 12 if the SEC and Big 10 would be okay with this, but what if there was something in college sports that was like, you know what, we're going to have divisions like an intramural sport or like the European soccer leagues, and you have to earn your way into these higher divisions, and you can get relegated down, Rutgers, if you don't perform well. What do you guys think of that idea?
It would absolutely change the face of college football. I think it would start rivaling the NFL in popularity. Just imagine the bottom games, the relegation games, right? You take the bottom 4 teams in Division 1, let's say it's 40 teams, then they play the loser, and then the losers get together and play the last game, and whoever loses that game gets relegated. That relegation game is going to be almost as popular as the national championship. Guaranteed.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can use a real example. Just look at last season. Utah completely just had a horrible season. Their last game of the year against UCF, if relegation's on the line, there's not a BYU fan in America that's not watching every single play of that game. Yeah. I mean, they're really not BYU fans. They're more Utah haters, most of them anyway, but they would be so dialed into that. And to be fair, if BYU ever faced relegation, I wouldn't miss a play. I would be there with pom-poms. I'd be like, this is amazing. Send them down to the Mountain West. And then on the same note, like if Utah State, they've had some good years, they get promoted up to playing the, I don't know, Big 12 or whatever it is, that would be awesome. I would love to see that.
Okay, so what are obviously from a fan's perspective, I think there's no question this is the right way to go. But what are the hurdles? Obviously, it's going to all revolve around money. What are the hurdles to getting something like that done?
Well,
the reason why it'll never happen is because if you want Ohio State to sign something saying that they can play a season in the MAC if things don't go well, they're not going to agree to that. Why would they? It's humiliating, even if it'll never happen. Why would they subject themselves to that? Alan, sorry, you were going to say something?
No, Dave's right. That's probably the number one reason. The other reason is like it's not the only way that this dream happens is if like Elon Musk or some billionaire buys all the football leagues and combines them into one and makes it one entity. So it's all the same league, just with different divisions.
The way would Elon to do that.
The way this would happen is if the TV networks wanted it. If the TV networks got creative and they said like, hey, here's the way to maximize the eyeballs and the important content that we could broadcast. We have to go to a promotion relegation system and work with the other networks. CBS Sports covers a lot of the Mountain West games, and TNT apparently is airing a lot of Big 12 games. Let them take the lower leagues and let ESPN and and Fox take the promoted leagues and work out something there. And, maybe they could come to that, but I'm not going to hold my breath. It would be awesome. It's a pipe dream.
We're talking about, yeah, I was gonna say we're talking about a pipe dream, boys. So, but maybe one.
Can I give you my sleeper scenario though, that I'm not predicting that this will happen, but it is just something interesting to think about.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, let's hear it.
okay, not promotion relegation. That would be option A for me, but right now there's a duopoly between Fox and ESPN with the Big Ten and the SEC. There's other players that want into this, right? This is a big cash grab if you're a TV network. If you're a TV network and you want to get in, you're not getting any of the prime content right now. The only way I think you could get it is you have to create a third conference. I mean, you could go after the ACC or the Big 12, but you're just not the top dog if you do that. Um, Texas, everyone knows the University of Texas. Everyone in that building has an ego. At least that's what I've been told. I don't know any of them, but I can't imagine that they enjoy going to the SEC where they're kind of an afterthought, and it's Georgia and Alabama that's really calling the shots within the conference, and they're told, what to do. Oklahoma, same thing, and I think that USC to the Big Ten is going to be a disaster. It has been so far. Oregon had a great year, but if you're somebody like say Apple. And Apple TV wants to get into live sports. They've already shown that. Or your Amazon. Apple is sitting on more cash. They could buy ESPN outright.
Hmm.
Instead, they approach Texas, Oklahoma, USC, UCLA, Oregon,
Notre
Washington. Get
Dame.
those six and say Notre Dame's not doing anything. But sure, Notre Dame. And you say, hey, forget these new conferences. This isn't working for you. Texas, we know you don't like. Come be the big dog again. Come be in our conference. And those six make a conference. And then take with you Oklahoma State, or if you can get Texas A&M to come, great. But take the best of the Big 12 as your remaining 6 or 10 or however many. I'm not going to even speculate who those schools would be, but top to bottom, that would be as good or a better conference than the Big 10,
Oh,
and it would be right up there with the SEC. And the amount of eyeballs you'd get would be awesome for the TV network. That would be the way for Apple to truly, or Amazon, truly break into college football and live sports and say, we are here, we are just as competitive as
Yeah.
anyone else. Also, I just don't think it sits right with a lot of fans. Maybe it's just me. To just not have a college football presence or base in the Western United States. USC playing in the Big Ten, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, there is no regionality to it at this point. I mean, it's just who's the biggest, best schools. And I see it from a perspective of just trying to make the most money and trying to put yourself in the best position. And you do have to surround yourself with the other schools that can help you get there. But that would be interesting if you had someone like a Texas try and team up with, these other schools that are kind of being left out in the cold. I'm thinking of Survivor right now. I'm a big Survivor fan. Like, if you're in the alliance, but you're kind of at the bottom of the alliance, that like as the alliance dwindles, you're going to be the one to go. That is kind of what it looks like with some of these schools. But by the way, this is just backtracking a little bit, but I was searching for it and I found it. These are the highest ratings in the history of the NBA. So look at that. All 6 of Michael Jordan's are in like the top 8, it looks like, or 9.
Wow.
And then the Cavs Warriors, which was epic in 2017. Actually, that's not the epic one. That was the 2016. That was the first one with Kevin Durant, the 2017 one, when Durant was on the Warriors. So the Thunder Pacers, game 1 was 11 million people. It was the lowest rated they've had since they started doing the ratings.
Sheesh. Yeah,
But
and I mean
look at this. It's Michael Jordan on all of them, and then it's
Michael Jordan and the
Lakers
Lakers.
Celtics, Lakers Celtics, Lakers. It's just it's Michael Jordan and the Lakers, and then
And then
LeBron
Caps
James and Steph
Warriors.
Curry.
Right.
So I do think there's something to be said from a TV perspective that we actually want to see Alabama dominate. I know that like true college football purists don't, but the general public maybe kind of does. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty tough to argue with that. It's lame and sucks, but it's probably the way it is.
Yeah,
well,
who knows? But go ahead, Alan.
here's the other part with that Clemson and Alabama, because again, the ratings did fall when Clemson and Alabama were playing every year. The antidote to that has been access, right? If the 2 best teams make it, everyone wants to see the 2 best teams play. We just saw that in the NBA ratings. But it was the access. You want a chance for an underdog in football. You want a chance for a Texas Tech or a Utah or gosh, I'm now in Miami, I guess, as an underdog to try and have access to even have a chance to play in the national championship. That's what we
Yeah.
have now, and that's why ratings are going back up. The two best teams are still playing. It's still going to be Ohio State and Georgia or whoever else, but now there's a chance for these lower tier teams, these non-blue bloods, to get in there and get in and get it. Heck, Boise State even's getting in. So I think that's why
That's a great point.
people are happy now because of the access, and so the access makes it a lot more exciting.
The question would be if the NBA shrank from, what are they, 32 teams right now? 34 teams in the NBA?
There are
If they
30 teams.
Okay, 30. So if they cut that in half and went to 15 teams, would the finals ratings take a hit? Even if you keep all the big teams in there, right? And you just remove the small ones, are you still going to get as many eyeballs, as many fans that care about the NBA? I think that would be the question.
Yeah, that's fewer teams, maybe not, but I do think oftentimes less is more, and I think that's like who cares about baseball? Like, does anybody really? I mean, there are diehards who will follow. Like, I have a buddy who watches literally every single Dodgers game, but there's 162 games, and so there's so many games that you just don't care as much. And I do think you could argue that that's the case with too many teams as well. I'm just throwing this out there because why is football so dominant? Is it because the game's that much better? Personally, I don't think that's why. I think it's because there's a scarcity behind how many games there are, how many chances you get to watch it. And in the NFL, you have 18 weeks and then the playoffs. In college football, you have, we'll call it 14 weeks and then the playoffs. And in the NBA and in Major League Baseball, it's like, oh, there's a game on every night. There's 7 games on every night. And so it's just like you don't care as much. I even think that the NBA would benefit from not doing a best of 7. I think they'd watch ratings, just skyrocket. So
Well,
I do wonder if you could apply that same mentality, the scarcity mentality, to the number of teams that are actually competing. And that's where I would love the relegation thing, because then everybody has a chance to get into that. And if you don't get into it, maybe you have to win this lower division. Because I don't know if you guys have followed, but it's what's the actor's name that is it Ryan Reynolds who bought part of like a soccer club over
Wrexham,
okay.
Wrexham United.
So
It's
I've
got
been
enough to
watching him care, and like I've also seen LeBron James has part of one, Tom Brady, and so I follow these, these celebrities, these, that have bought these portions of teams, and it's kind of fun to see if their teams can climb up. And I admittedly don't follow super closely because I'm not as into European soccer in general, but
Why?
it is interesting to see how much they care to see if they can climb their way into these higher leagues. To me, that would be incredible, because I do think that you have the scarcity of like, hey, only the top 20 or top 30 are going to be in this league. So like, I think there's teams, being here in Utah, obviously we've got Utah and BYU that we'd like to think are like on the cusp of being with the big boys, but they would have a chance to prove it. This last year would be a year where maybe BYU earns their way into a higher league, and Utah had many years before that where they would have earned their way absolutely into a higher league, winning the Pac-12, going to a Rose Bowl. And then they get into that big boy party, for a season or 2 or 3 until they prove otherwise. I don't know. I know that's a pipe dream, like we said, but to me, I do see the scarcity being something that could play in the favor of actually earning more dollars, not less.
Yeah, I could see that, but there's two things. There's scarcity of games and there's scarcity of teams, right? And they're two different things. And I do
Yeah.
think we're making all these comparisons to other leagues, and none of them truly fit. Like, they have a lot of scarcity of games in college football. Each team plays 12 games,
Hmm.
plus postseason. What is the postseason in sports that has the least scarcity of teams? It's March Madness. We love March Madness, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
I don't have the ratings up in front of me, but that's a pretty successful postseason.
that is
Nobody cares about the regular season in college basketball. I mean, a little bit, but
a
there's
little bit.
there's
Yeah.
so many games. There's 350 some odd teams.
Yep.
But you get into the playoffs, and it's real exciting. So I mean, I don't know. I
But
don't know that I.
but let me cut you off there. We did watch when Duke and North Carolina and Kentucky and UCLA and Villanova and Gonzaga, when these teams don't make it far, the ratings drop significantly. So we
But that
say
goes
we
back
want
to
we
Alan's
say we
point.
want to see George Mason make it to the Final Four, but once they're there, we're kind of like, whatever. I want UConn. I want Duke.
But it goes back to Alan's point. We watch because of the access, because there's so many teams. I mean, no one questions when you win a basketball championship. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, you deserve that." There were 64 teams, and you were the last man standing. College football, they fixed it a little bit, but for a while there, it was like so much controversy on who even belongs in this game. Let's have some people vote. Let's have a computer tell us no matter what we did, it was wrong.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I still think that the access has been a huge step in the right direction, and you can't now cut the access in half in terms of teams that are actually able to play for that, right? Even though it's the same teams every year, we, s- I mean, we should pull up the ratings for last year's playoff and see if anybody watched Indiana, Boise State, or Arizona State play, right?
What it
Yeah.
is,
My guess is they had the worst ratings, but still, the fact that they're there legitimizes it when it's Notre Dame and Ohio State in the championship. We can't complain, oh, they get all this special treatment by the AP voters, and that's why they're there, and it's so broken. We can't say that because we're like, oh, all these teams that we wanted to be there were there, and they lost. Some of them lost by a lot, right? I think Arizona State
Hmm.
was the only one that kept it close.
So here, I got it pulled up. Let me share my screen here.
excited to see.
All right, so here are the ratings for last year's 2024 college football playoffs. I don't know how these compare to previous years necessarily.
You know, the one of the obvious things here, though, is that the blowouts are at the bottom and the close games are at the top. You look Arizona State, Texas. There's a great football game. Arizona State had that. 17.3 million viewers. That's one of the best first round games. I believe that might be the best first round. Yeah, it is the best first round game. They had a bye, so it was technically second round. Oh, so it was the worst second round. Never mind. Point rescinded. But it was a great game.
But it does look like as the rounds went on, the viewership increased. So I don't know that I'm seeing a correlation between the size of the school or not.
Well,
But
that's the biggest argument
Ohio
for not
State's at the
expanding the
top.
playoff right there.
yeah,
Like, please don't.
Yeah, in order to really be able to analyze this, we would have needed SMU or Boise State to win a game, right?
yeah, yeah,
And go a little deeper. These and the first rounds were blowouts. So like, how do you say, oh, nobody wanted to watch SMU Penn State? Well,
yeah.
wasn't close, right?
No, it was not. I was watching that game just praying that SMU could do something to kind of like fix the system, and they just were not doing it. So one last point, and we're got to wrap up here soon, but this is just something I thought about. At what point is AI going to start determining the rankings and the seedings and everything else?
Hopefully, we always keep a human element, but it's coming.
Well, I mean, hopefully soon, but
Last thing we
you
want
say
is to
hopefully we
find
keep a human
a
element.
national
We
champion.
we used to just we didn't have a human element. What was it, 10 years ago when we did the BCS? It was just
BCS, yeah.
computers. I think that was better than AP votes. And the problem, and then we went to the committee, right? We went AP votes, then we went to this BCS system with computers, and now we are with a committee that sits in a room, makes these decisions, and yeah, they recuse themselves if their team's involved. Sir, I don't know. They explain their rationale, but there's always loopholes in what they say. Like no matter what is done is broken. But I would love to see a combination. In college basketball, they use the net rankings, and it gives you. There's a computer system that they say we're going to rely on this heavily, whereas the committee just says doing a little bit of eye test and a little bit of whatever we want. You're kind of like, yeah, all right,
You know,
that works, right?
for the way that college football does this, I don't know why they just don't hire 10 people that know what they're talking about, former coaches, former players, and their only job for 4 or 5 months is to watch every single game. And you pay them to do that, and you pay them well. Like, it's simple. And then if you want to,
I still don't trust them.
well, that's what I'm saying. They don't have to have full say. Like, let's have that AI or BCS computer element. Maybe these people watching the games is like 40%, and the computer is 60%. But either way, like there's ways to do this to make this better. Like, I mean, I'm just speaking from
The
a fan's perspective. It seems like everything these guys are doing, all these lawsuits, all these rules, no guardrails. We want players to get paid. We love the transfer portal, but there's nothing limiting it. You can leave in the middle of whatever it is. It's just they're doing everything they can to hurt the fan experience. Luckily, the game
yeah, they're not helping us.
on field is great. On the field is great, but man, like let's
I would say there's three ways to fix it.
okay.
Like one, don't come out with any ratings until like week 7, right? They already do that for the committee, but
They already do that
they
with
come out
committee,
with
yeah.
but they have preseason AP rankings and they absolutely bias the opinions throughout the season. So just
Yeah.
eliminate any kind of rankings until week 6.
Agreed.
I know the committee goes,
They clearly like position it in a way where they know what's coming up, and they're like, well, we need to have them 13th this week because it will look too crazy if we jump them into 11th, or they definitely, you can tell there's times where the committee has strategically positioned a team a spot or two higher or lower than they should be based on what they want to happen the next week.
Correct.
yeah, and you can't convince me that the committee voters aren't watching AP polls, right? Like
Of
I had
course
an
they are.
AP voter, I listened to his podcast yesterday. Shout out Josh Furlong with KSL, and he was saying like all these really tell us is how you're just viewed by everybody else, and I'm like, yeah, that's all it is. Like wait
Yeah.
till week 6. So that's one way. Number two is come up with some kind of objective criteria. Come up with bring back one of those formulas or something, and say we're going to go off this. And what that's going to do is introduce a strength of schedule element where teams are then incentivized to play difficult teams out of conference. Because right now, if I'm athletic director, it's like, hey, give me the worst possible out of conference teams, and let's just get with the best record we can, so we're still in play. A loss hurts you way more than a win helps you in out of conference college football play. And then the third way to fix it, they already did expand the playoff. This was egregious and just stupid and awful when it was only two teams going, and we had to have these debates, and someone's getting left out, and you have to wonder forever how would they have done, right? We all still have to wonder how 2008 Utah or 2004 Utah would have done.
Or
We'll never know.
Texas A&M team, probably
Some
the
of
best
us
team
know.
to never make it.
Yeah, I mean 100%. But they fixed that. Like you look now, and they've got college basketball. 68 teams go. If you're 69th, are you really? How mad do you get to be
Yeah.
that you're not in there? You're 69th. You don't get to talk about that. College football, there looks like they're going to expand to 16. Right now they're 12. If you're the 13th best team in college football, do you get to be mad that you don't get to play for a national championship? Maybe you get to argue that you were better than number 12 or number 11. But you know what? Get in the top 10, right? And then you get
Yeah.
to play for a national championship. So I think they largely fixed the problem, but I would still like to see some criteria that incentivizes teams to schedule more difficult opponents out of conference.
Yeah, and incentivizes people to actually need to play for their conference championship game, because a lot of these things now, it's like there's
100%.
such a penalty that can come by losing that game.
Yep.
And
Great
whereas
point.
teams that didn't qualify for the game sit out, and it's like, okay, you're in the national title. It's just kind of a weird thing.
2022, if USC would have sat out that Pac-12 championship game, they would have gone to the 14 playoff. Instead, they showed
Yeah.
up and played Utah. They shouldn't have. And who was it that they believe it was a Big Ten team, Michigan or Ohio State, that did not go to their conference championship? They didn't make it. And when USC lost, they got into the playoff. It's completely backwards, and it just makes
Yeah.
those games more and more meaningless.
Yep. No, I totally agree. Guys, this has been good. That's all the time we have for today, but thank you for joining us. We're going to make this a more regular occurrence, get Dave and Alan on the podcast to talk college sports, particularly college football. Summer is here, and so we got a lot of fun stuff coming up before the college football season. Guys, thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean.
See you guys.